Hands where I can see them. Now. The flashlight beam cuts across her face. Parking garage concrete. 11:47 p.m. A woman in jeans and a cardigan, standing 3 feet from the hospital's service entrance with a keycard in her right hand. She raises both palms slowly. The keycard catches fluorescent light. The officer steps closer. His hand rests on his weapon. His eyes move from her face to her clothes to her natural hair pulled back in a simple twist. Nothing about her appearance says doctor. Everything about his posture says he's already decided what she is. This area's restricted after 10. I work here. Sure you do. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. And I'm the Surgeon General. His radio crackles. He keys it without looking away from her. Dispatch, Unit 7-4. Suspicious individual at Memorial Regional rear entrance. Black female, mid-40s. Claims to have access credentials. Requesting verification. The response comes through static. Copy 7-4. Original caller described subject as possibly homeless, acting erratically. Proceed with caution. Possibly homeless. She's heard those words before. In residency. In her first attending position. In 100 small moments that accumulated like scar tissue over 20 years of medicine. But tonight is different. Tonight, the man pointing a flashlight at her chest has no idea he's just made the worst mistake of his career. Because the keycard in her hand opens every door in this building, every surgical suite, every executive office, every restricted file room that officers like him will never see. And in 72 hours, she'll be sitting at the head of a boardroom table, watching his entire career collapse. She doesn't tell him any of this. Instead, she lowers her hands another inch, keeps her voice level, and waits for him to dig his grave a little deeper. The card, he says. Kick it over here, slowly. She complies. The plastic skitters across concrete, stopping at his boot. He picks it up, angles his flashlight across the surface. The display shows Memorial Regional Medical Center, full access, Ashford I. No photo, no title. Just a name and a clearance level he doesn't understand. Where'd you get this? It was issued to me. By the hospital. In what capacity? I'm not required to answer questions during a consensual encounter. Her voice stays clinical, precise, the language of someone who's been stopped enough times to memorize the script. Am I being detained? His jaw tightens. Behind him, another patrol car pulls into the garage. Backup arriving before she's done anything wrong. 2 officers becoming 3. The net closing around a woman whose only crime was returning to work after hours. The keycard disappears into his pocket. Not logged. Not documented. Just taken. Turn around, he says. Hands behind your back. On what charge? Trespassing. Criminal impersonation. Possession of stolen property. 3 charges. All fabricated. All requiring elements that don't exist in this moment. But the handcuffs are real. Cold metal clicking around her wrists while she stands in a parking garage she has every right to occupy. The garage attached to the hospital where, 12 hours ago, she saved 2 lives and lost 1. The hospital that appointed her chief medical officer 3 weeks ago. She could end this in 30 seconds. 1 phone call, 1 title, 1 revelation that would turn this officer's confidence into panic. But she doesn't reach for her phone, doesn't speak, just watches him smile as he shoves her toward the patrol car and thinks about everything she's going to document when this is over. Sometimes the only way to prove a system is broken is to let it break you first. If you want to see what happens when this officer realizes exactly who he arrested, subscribe right now and keep watching. 14 hours earlier, the day had started like any other. 6:15 a.m. Ivory Ashford's alarm cuts through the darkness of her apartment bedroom. She's already awake, has been for 20 minutes, lying still, running through the surgical schedule in her head. 3 procedures today. 2 routine, 1 complicated. A 73-year-old man with an aortic aneurysm that could rupture if she doesn't get the angle exactly right. She showers in 4 minutes, dresses and scrubs, no jewelry, no watch, nothing that could harbor bacteria or catch on equipment. Her white coat hangs in her office at the hospital. She'll put it on when she arrives. Or maybe she won't. Some days the coat feels like armor. Other days it feels like a target. Today, she leaves it hanging. The drive to Memorial Regional takes 18 minutes at this hour. Empty streets, traffic lights cycling through colors for no one. The hospital rises against the pre-dawn sky, all glass and concrete, and the soft glow of windows where night shift staff move through their final rounds. She parks in the staff garage, level 3, the same spot she's used for 3 weeks, ever since she accepted the position that brought her back to this city. Chief Medical Officer. The title still feels new, heavy with responsibility she hasn't fully grown into yet. The service entrance recognizes her keycard. The elevator takes her to the 4th floor, and by 6:45 she's already reviewing charts, already planning, already doing the work that no one sees but everyone depends on. The hospital cafeteria opens at 7. She heads down for coffee at 9:30, between her first surgery and her second. The line moves slowly, visitors and staff shuffling forward with trays and tired eyes. "Excuse me." The voice comes from behind her, sharp, impatient. Ivory turns. A woman in nursing scrubs stands there, arms crossed, name tag reading Heather Vance, RN, nurse manager, 4th floor. Staff line is for employees only. Ivory looks at the line she's standing in. The sign above it clearly reads, Staff. She looks back at the nurse manager. "I'm aware." "Then you'll need to show your badge." "I'm sorry?" "Your badge, hospital policy. We've had issues with people using the staff line who don't belong here." The emphasis on those last 3 words hangs in the air. People who don't belong. The nurse manager's eyes move over Ivory's scrubs, her face, her hair, making calculations, drawing conclusions. Ivory reaches into her pocket, produces the badge she'd clipped there this morning. The nurse manager takes it, examines it with the kind of scrutiny usually reserved for suspected counterfeits. "This looks new." "It is." "What department?" "Administration." The word sits there. Administration. It could mean anything. Receptionist. Billing clerk. Someone who answers phones and files paperwork. The nurse manager's expression suggests she's already decided which category Ivory belongs in. Well, she hands the badge back. She hands the E. "Just checking. Can't be too careful these days." She walks away without apologizing, without acknowledging the accusation embedded in her questions. Just another small moment in a long line of small moments that accumulate over years and decades until they feel like a weight you carry everywhere. Ivory gets her coffee, finds a table in the corner, arranges her cup, her notebook, and her pager in the same positions they always occupy. A small ritual of order in a profession defined by chaos. The elevator takes her back upstairs. 2 doctors are already inside when she enters. Both white, both male, both deep in conversation. Neither acknowledges her presence. "Boards lost their minds," one is saying. Tall, silver-haired, expensive watch. His voice carries the confidence of someone who's never been questioned in his life. "Bringing in someone from outside when I've given this hospital 15 years. 15 years of building the cardiac program. And they pass me over for what?" The other doctor murmurs something sympathetic. "Diversity hire," the silver-haired man continues. "That's what it is. Check a box, make the board feel progressive. Never mind qualifications, never mind experience, never mind that I've..." The elevator reaches 4. The doors open. Ivory steps out without a word. Behind her, she hears, "Who was that?" "No idea. Probably a tech." The doors close. She walks to her office, opens her computer, pulls up the surgical schedule and reviews every detail of the aortic procedure she'll perform in 2 hours. The silver-haired man's words echo in her head. Diversity hire. She's heard that phrase before too. In every hospital where she's ever worked. In every position she's ever held. No matter how many degrees she earns, no matter how many lives she saves, there's always someone ready to explain that she doesn't really deserve to be here. She pushes the thought aside. There's work to do. The aortic surgery takes 4 hours and 17 minutes. The patient, Harold Okonkwo, 73, retired postal worker, father of 4, lies on the table while Ivory navigates the most dangerous territory in the human body. One wrong cut and he bleeds out in minutes. One misplaced suture and the repair fails within weeks. She doesn't make mistakes. The aneurysm is larger than the imaging suggested, wrapped around the aorta like a balloon waiting to pop. She works steadily, her hands moving with the precision that comes from 10,000 hours of practice. The surgical team watches, assists, follows her instructions without question. At 1:47 p.m., she closes the final suture, steps back from the table, pulls off her gloves, and drops them in the biohazard container. "Good work, everyone." The words are automatic. The exhaustion underneath them is real. In the recovery room, Harold's wife is waiting. Mrs. Okonkwo, 68, retired teacher, hands clasped tight enough to turn her knuckles pale. She stands when she sees Ivory approaching. "Doctor? Is he?" "He's stable. The surgery went well. We repaired the aneurysm successfully. He'll need to stay in the ICU for a few days, but I expect a full recovery." The relief that crosses Mrs. Okonkwo's face is physical. Her whole body seems to loosen, like a string pulled too tight, finally relaxing. "Thank you." Her voice breaks. "Thank you so much." Ivory takes her hand, holds it for a moment. This is the part of medicine that never shows up in statistics or studies, the human connection. The moment when you tell someone their husband will come home. The nurses will come get you when you can see him. She walks away before the emotion can catch her. There's still work to do. Another surgery in an hour, rounds after that, reports to review, meetings to schedule, 100 small decisions that will ripple through other people's lives. The cafeteria serves lunch until 2. She grabs a sandwich and eats it in the stairwell between floors, a habit from residency days when there was never enough time, never a moment to sit, never a breath between crises. 20 years later, she still eats like she's running out of time. The second surgery ends at 5. The third is canceled. The patient developed an infection and needs antibiotics before they can proceed. Ivory uses the unexpected break to catch up on paperwork, reviewing department reports and budget requests and staffing complaints that pile up faster than she can process them. 6:30. The sun is setting through her office window, painting the walls in shades of orange and gold. Her phone buzzes. A text from her sister in D.C., Elena. "Still alive?" Ivory types back. "Barely. Long day." Elena. "Come visit. Mom keeps asking about you." Ivory stares at the message. Their mother, 81, living in the same house in Baltimore where Ivory grew up. The house with the garden where her father taught her to plant tomatoes. The house where she studied for the MCAT at the kitchen table while her mother made dinner. The house she hasn't visited in 3 months because there's always another surgery, another meeting, another crisis that demands her attention. Ivory. "Soon. I promise." She puts the phone down, rubs her eyes. The exhaustion is settling into her bones now, the adrenaline from surgery finally fading. She should go home, sleep, be back here at 6 tomorrow to do it all again. Instead, she pulls up the chart for Mrs. Patterson in room 412, 84 years old. Hip replacement 2 days ago. Recovering well, but her labs came back slightly elevated this morning. Probably nothing. Probably just the body's normal response to trauma. But Ivory had promised to check on her before the end of the day. She looks at the clock. 7:15. The 4th floor is quiet now, visitors heading home, day shift changing to night, the rhythm of the hospital slowing into its nocturnal pattern. She could check the labs from here, pull up the numbers on her computer, and make a decision without leaving her chair. But Mrs. Patterson is 84 years old and alone. Her husband died last year. Her children live in other states. And sometimes what a patient needs isn't medical intervention. It's just someone to sit with them for a few minutes and prove that they haven't been forgotten. Ivory saves her work, logs out of her computer, heads for the door. She doesn't bother with her white coat, doesn't change out of her scrubs. Just grabs her keycard and walks toward the elevator, thinking about lab values and loneliness and the 100 small kindnesses that make up a life in medicine. The elevator takes her to 4. The hallway is quiet. The nurse's station occupied by a single figure, Willow Keene, according to her badge, young and clearly new to the floor. Dr. Ashford. Willow looks up from her chart. I didn't know you were still here. Just checking on Mrs. Patterson. Her morning labs were a little high. I saw that. I was going to call it in if they didn't improve by tomorrow. Good instinct. Let me take a look at her, and I'll let you know. Room 412 is at the end of the hall. Mrs. Patterson is awake when Ivory enters, watching a nature documentary with the sound turned low. Dr. Ashford! Her face lights up. They told me you'd gone home hours ago. I had some paperwork to finish. Ivory pulls a chair to the bedside. How are you feeling? Old? Mrs. Patterson laughs, then winces. And sore, but better than yesterday. That new hip doesn't know what hit it yet, but we're getting acquainted. They talk for 20 minutes, about pain levels and mobility exercises and what Mrs. Patterson will do when she goes home. Her daughter is flying in from Seattle next week to help her get settled. About the nature documentary, which is apparently about penguins, and how Mrs. Patterson has always wanted to go to Antarctica, but never quite managed it. Maybe now, Ivory says. Once that hip heals up, you'll be ready for anything. Maybe. Mrs. Patterson's eyes are tired but warm. Thank you for coming by, Doctor. It means more than you know. Ivory squeezes her hand, checks her vitals one more time, makes a note in the chart about the lab values. They're not concerning enough to intervene tonight, but worth watching tomorrow. 8:45. The parking garage will be almost empty by now. She should go home. Sleep. Come back tomorrow and do this all again. She's almost to the elevator when she realizes she left her phone in Mrs. Patterson's room. 9:15 p.m. Ivory walks out the hospital's main entrance, phone retrieved, jacket over her arm. The parking garage is 3 buildings away, a relic of the hospital's expansion, when they ran out of adjacent space and had to buy the lot across the street. She's halfway to her car when she remembers the labs again. Mrs. Patterson's white blood cell count was slightly elevated this morning. Probably nothing. But what if it's not? What if there's an infection brewing? Something the hip surgery stirred up? Something that needs intervention before it becomes serious? She checks her phone. 9:17. The labs from this evening should be in by now. She can check them from home. Pull up the chart remotely and verify that everything is fine. Or she can walk back into the hospital, check them in person, and know for certain. She stops in the middle of the sidewalk. A car passes. The street lights flicker overhead. 20 years of medicine has taught her to trust her instincts, to investigate the things that nag at the edge of her consciousness, to never assume something is fine when she has the ability to check. She turns around. The service entrance is closer than the main entrance, just around the corner, through the parking garage, accessible with her keycard. She can be in and out in 10 minutes. Check the labs, verify everything is stable, go home with peace of mind. She doesn't change clothes, doesn't think about how she looks. Jeans and a cardigan now, the scrubs traded for street clothes during her brief stop at her office. She looks like what she is, a tired woman who's been working for 15 hours and just wants to finish one last task before she goes home. The parking garage is dim. A few cars scattered across level 1. The echo of her footsteps on concrete. She's almost to the service entrance when the spotlight hits her. 11:47 p.m. The patrol car had been waiting on level 2. Engine off, lights dark. Parked at an angle that gave the occupant a clear view of anyone approaching the hospital's rear entrance. Officer Blake Garrison watched through his windshield as the woman crossed the garage. Black, mid-40s, casual clothes, moving with purpose toward a restricted entrance after hours. His radio had crackled 3 minutes earlier, dispatch relaying a 911 call from inside the hospital. Suspicious individual, possibly homeless, acting erratically. He hadn't verified the description, hadn't asked for clarification, had simply seen a black woman in a parking garage and decided she matched whatever image existed in his head. Now he stands in front of her, flashlight beam cutting across her face, one hand resting on his weapon. "This area is restricted after 10. I work here." "Sure you do." He doesn't believe her, doesn't want to believe her. Believing her would mean acknowledging that he stopped an innocent woman for the crime of walking while black. Believing her would mean questioning the instinct that told him she didn't belong. So instead, he keys his radio. "Dispatch, Unit 7-4, suspicious individual at Memorial Regional Rear Entrance. Black female, mid-40s, claims to have access credentials, requesting verification." The response confirms everything he already decided. Copy 7-4. Original caller described subject as possibly homeless, acting erratically. Proceed with caution. Possibly homeless. The woman in front of him doesn't look homeless. Her clothes are clean. Her posture is calm. Her keycard, which she's holding in plain sight, appears legitimate. But admitting that would require Garrison to reconsider, to back down, to treat her as something other than what he's already decided she is. So instead, he escalates. "The card, kick it over here, slowly." She complies. No argument, no resistance, just compliance, the kind that comes from knowing exactly how these encounters can end if she gives an officer any excuse. He picks up the card, examines it. The display shows clearance he doesn't recognize, a name that means nothing to him. "Where'd you get this?" "It was issued to me, by the hospital." "In what capacity?" "I'm not required to answer questions during a consensual encounter. Am I being detained?" The response is precise, clinical, the language of someone who's navigated this script before, someone who knows her rights and how little those rights matter when she's alone in a parking garage with an officer who's already made up his mind. Garrison's jaw tightens. He doesn't like being challenged, doesn't like the calm in her voice or the way she's looking at him, not frightened, not angry, just watchful, like she's documenting every word he says. Behind him, another patrol car pulls in. Officer Ryan Delgado, younger, less experienced, arriving in response to the backup request Garrison sent before he even approached her. "What's the situation?" "Found her trying to access the building. Claims she works here." Delgado looks at the woman, at her clothes, at the keycard now in Garrison's hand. "Ma'am, do you have any other identification?" "My driver's license is in my car. I was only coming in for a few minutes." "Convenient," Garrison says. His hand moves toward her arm. Not asking. Taking. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." "On what charge?" "Trespassing, criminal impersonation, possession of stolen property." He spins her before she can respond. Wrenches her arms behind her back. The handcuffs go on too tight. She can feel the metal biting into her wrists, pressure that will leave marks. "You're making a mistake," she says. "That's what they all say." He doesn't read her rights, doesn't explain the charges beyond what he's already said, just pushes her toward the patrol car, one hand on her shoulder, fingers digging in hard enough to hurt. Delgado watches, says nothing. The silence of complicity. The patrol car's back seat smells like fast food and vinyl. She sits with her hands cuffed behind her, wrists already aching, and counts the violations. No probable cause for arrest. 4. No verification of her credentials. No Miranda warning. Excessive force during the arrest. Each one is a brick in the case she'll build later. Each one is evidence that this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision, made in seconds, based on nothing but her face and her skin, and the assumptions that live in men like Officer Blake Garrison. The car pulls away from Memorial Regional. Through the window, she watches the hospital shrink, the building where she's saved hundreds of lives becoming smaller and smaller until it disappears around a corner. Her phone is still in her pocket. Garrison didn't find it during the pat-down. Sloppy work. The kind of mistake that happens when an officer is more interested in intimidation than procedure. She could call someone. End this now. One name, one title, one conversation that would turn Garrison's confidence into panic. But she doesn't. Because sometimes documentation matters more than intervention. Because sometimes the only way to prove a pattern is to let it complete itself. Because sometimes a woman with power has to experience what women without power experience, just to understand how deep the rot goes. The car turns south, away from the main precinct, toward a destination she doesn't recognize. Where are you taking me? Garrison glances back through the partition. Wherever we please. If you think you know where this is going, you're wrong. Keep watching. The East Side Annex sits on a corner lot in southeast Atlanta, surrounded by a chain-link fence and cracked asphalt. A building from another era, concrete block construction, small windows, flat roof that's seen better decades. The kind of place where complaints go to die. Garrison parks in a spot marked Authorized Vehicles Only. 3 officers wait near the entrance, their presence too coordinated for coincidence. They knew she was coming. The booking area smells like disinfectant and old coffee. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. A desk sergeant looks up as they enter, his expression bored until he sees who Garrison is bringing in. What have we got? Trespassing, criminal impersonation. Found her trying to access Memorial Regional after hours. The desk sergeant looks at Ivory, at her clothes, at her face. His eyebrows rise slightly. She give you trouble? Nothing I couldn't handle. They uncuff her long enough to take her belongings. Phone, watch, driver's license. The keycard that should have proven she belongs at Memorial Regional. Ivory watches the booking officer log each item. Or try to log them. He writes down the phone, the watch, the license. He doesn't write down the keycard. That card needs to be on the inventory. The booking officer doesn't look up. I know how to do my job. Then log all 4 items: phone, watch, license, and keycard. Garrison steps closer. You giving my people problems? I'm requesting accurate documentation of seized property. Georgia Code Section 17426 requires itemized receipts for all items taken during arrest. The booking officer's pen stops. He glances at Garrison, something flickering in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or concern. Suspects don't usually cite statutes. Log the card, Garrison says. His voice is flat. We'll figure out later whether it's stolen. The card goes on the list. Ivory files the victory away. Small, but real. Documentation matters. Every item logged is an item they can't claim was never there. They lead her to processing. Fingerprints, mugshot, the whole degrading ritual designed to strip away identity and replace it with a number. Turn left, turn right, face forward. The camera flashes. She keeps her expression neutral. Doesn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her fear or her anger or the calculation running behind her eyes. The holding cell is at the end of a long corridor. Metal bench. Stainless steel toilet. Walls the color of institutional despair. They push her inside, and the door slams shut with a clang that echoes off concrete. Enjoy your stay, Garrison says through the bars. Bail hearing's Monday. Today is Friday. That's 3 days. Good math. Georgia law requires bail hearings within 48 hours for misdemeanor charges. County of Riverside versus McLaughlin. Garrison's smile fades, just for a moment. Then it returns, sharper than before. That's California law. It's Supreme Court precedent, applies nationwide. He doesn't respond, just turns and walks away, boots echoing on concrete until the sound fades to nothing. Ivory sits on the metal bench, leans her head against the wall, closes her eyes. The cell is cold, the bench is hard. Somewhere down the corridor, another detainee is crying, low, hopeless sounds that drift through the air like smoke. She doesn't cry, doesn't panic, just sits in the dim light and begins to document every word Garrison said, every procedure he violated, every moment that contradicted the law he claims to enforce. She builds the case in her head, brick by brick, preparing for what comes next. Because this isn't over. This is just beginning. The hours crawl past. 1 a.m., 2, 3. The crying detainee falls silent. The overnight shift changes somewhere beyond the walls, footsteps and muffled conversations marking the transition. The fluorescent light above her cell flickers on a 12-second cycle. She counts it over and over, something to focus on besides the cold and the discomfort and the rage building in her chest. At 3:47, footsteps approach. A different officer this time. Younger, female, name tag reading, Officer Tanya Price. She stops outside Ivory's cell, clipboard in hand, expression carefully neutral. "You haven't eaten." They'd brought a tray at midnight. Bologna sandwich on stale bread, bruised apple, milk that smelled like it had been sitting out too long. Ivory hadn't touched it. "I'm not hungry." "You should eat something. Could be a while before you get another chance." "Is that a threat?" Officer Price's expression doesn't change. "It's advice." She lingers for a moment like she wants to say something else. Then she moves on, clipboard clutched to her chest, footsteps fading down the corridor. Ivory picks up the sandwich, takes a bite. The bread is stale, the meat is questionable, but she forces herself to swallow. Hunger won't help her now. 6 a.m. brings shift change. The overnight staff filters out, day staff filters in. The energy in the building shifts, more activity, more noise, more people moving through corridors with purpose. At 6:15, a door opens somewhere nearby. Heavy footsteps. Multiple sets. Lieutenant Derek Collier stops outside her cell. He's older than Garrison. Harder. 22 years on the force, according to the nameplate, with the kind of face that suggests he's seen everything and remains unimpressed by all of it. His uniform is crisp. His expression is stone. "Dr. Ashford." He says the title like it's a question. "That what you're calling yourself?" "It's my name." He produces a folder from under his arm. Opens it. Scans the contents. "Says here you were found trespassing at Memorial Regional Medical Center, refused to comply with officer instructions, became verbally combative when questioned." "None of that is true." "Says here you were in possession of what appears to be a stolen access credential." "The credential is mine, issued by the hospital 3 weeks ago." Collier looks up from the folder. His eyes are cold, assessing, the eyes of a man who's decided what he believes and isn't interested in alternatives. "Hospital says they've never heard of you." The lie lands like a slap. They haven't called the hospital, haven't verified anything. They're bluffing, testing her, trying to shake her story loose. "Then your information is incorrect." "My information comes from Officer Garrison, who's been with this department for 8 years without a single complaint on his record." Another lie. Garrison has 3 complaints in his file, all dismissed, all involving black citizens, all following the same pattern: stop, escalate, arrest, cover. But she doesn't know that yet. Won't know until later, when the documentation surfaces and the picture becomes clear. For now, she says, Officer Garrison arrested me without probable cause, failed to verify my credentials, and denied me access to a phone for... She checks the clock visible through the cell bars. Over 7 hours, all of which violates my constitutional rights. Constitutional rights. Collier's smile is thin and humorless. "You a lawyer now, too?" "I'm someone who understands the law." "Well?" He closes the folder. "Let's see how well you understand it from in here. Your bail hearing's Monday morning. Until then, I suggest you make yourself comfortable. Georgia law is whatever the district attorney says it is. And right now, the DA's office is closed for the weekend." He walks away. The door at the end of the corridor slams shut behind him. "Bapio." The interrogation room smells like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. They come for her at 7:30. Two officers she doesn't recognize, escorting her down a corridor and through a reinforced door into a room with no windows and one table bolted to the floor. Garrison is already there. Seated across from where they place her, folder open in front of him, smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Dr. Ashford, comfortable night?" She doesn't answer, just sits in the chair they indicate and waits. "See, here's the thing." He leans forward, elbows on the table, fingers interlaced. "I've been doing this a long time. I know when someone's hiding something. And you?" He points at her. "You're hiding something." "I'm a physician at Memorial Regional Medical Center. I was returning to check on a patient when you arrested me. At 11:47 at night, in street clothes, with no identification besides a keycard that anyone could have stolen? I had my driver's license. Your officers confiscated it. Which proves who you are, not that you work there. The keycard proves I have authorized access to the building. Keycards get lost, stolen, copied." Garrison shrugs. "We've had 3 break-ins at hospitals this month. People stealing drugs, equipment, you name it. You match the description of someone we're looking for." The lie is smoother this time, more practiced. A narrative constructed to justify what he's already done. "What description?" "Black female, mid-40s, operating alone, targeting medical facilities after hours." "Operating alone," Ivory keeps her voice steady. "You mean walking through a parking garage by myself?" "I mean accessing a restricted area at 11:47 p.m. without proper identification." "I had identification. You took it." Garrison's smile hardens. He doesn't like being contradicted, doesn't like the way she's refusing to crumble under pressure. "Let me tell you how this works," he says. "You tell me who you really are, who you're working with, how you got that key card, where the drugs are going, and we can talk about making this easier. Maybe drop some charges. Maybe get you out of here before Monday." "I'm Dr. Ivory Ashford, Chief Medical Officer of Memorial Regional Medical Center, and I'm not working with anyone because there's nothing to work on. You arrested an innocent woman, and you know it." The words hang in the air. Garrison's expression shifts. Something flickers behind his eyes, doubt, maybe, or concern. Chief Medical Officer. That's not a title you throw around casually. That's not something a thief would claim because it's too easy to verify. But admitting doubt would mean admitting he was wrong, and men like Garrison don't admit they're wrong. "Chief Medical Officer." He laughs, but there's an edge to it now. "Right, and I'm the mayor. Nice try, sweetheart." "I'm not your sweetheart. I'm a suspect in your custody, and I'm entitled to be treated with basic dignity." Dignity. He stands, circles the table, stops behind her chair, close enough that she can feel his breath on the back of her neck. "You want dignity? Then stop lying to me." His hand lands on her shoulder, heavy, pressing down. "I know what you are," he says. "I know what you were doing at that hospital. And before this weekend is over, you're going to tell me everything." She doesn't flinch, doesn't turn, just stares at the wall ahead and says, "Get your hand off me." "Or what?" "Or I'll add assault to the complaint I'm filing when I get out of here." His grip tightens, fingers digging into her collarbone, pain radiating down her arm. "You're not getting out of here. Not until I say so. Every hour you hold me without proper charges is another violation of my civil rights. 18 U.S.C. Section 242. Deprivation of rights under color of law, felony offense, up to 10 years. The statute number lands like a physical blow. Garrison's hand loosens. His breathing changes. "How do you know that?" "Because I pay attention." He releases her, steps back. His expression is uncertain now, the confidence cracking around the edges. "We're done here." He moves toward the door. "Take her back to holding." The officers escort her out, down the corridor, through the reinforced door, back to the cold cell with the flickering light and the metal bench. But something has changed. She saw it in Garrison's eyes. The doubt, the fear, the realization that maybe he picked the wrong target this time. He doesn't know who she is yet, doesn't understand the magnitude of his mistake, but he's starting to suspect. Chapter 10 a.m., 12 hours since arrest. Ivory sits on the metal bench, cataloging everything. Every word said, every procedure violated, every moment that deviated from the law. Down the corridor, a door opens. Footsteps approaching. Not Garrison this time. The rhythm is different, heavier, more deliberate. Lieutenant Collier appears outside her cell. His expression has changed since this morning. The stone has cracked. Something that looks almost like worry lines his face. We need to talk. About what? About who you are. He unlocks the cell. Leads her to a different room this time. Smaller, no table, 2 chairs facing each other. He sits in one and gestures for her to take the other. I made some calls, he says. Did you? Memorial Regional Medical Center asked about their chief medical officer. The words hang in the air between them. She watches his face, waiting for what comes next. They said her name is Ivory Ashford. Silence. They said she's been with them for 3 weeks. More silence. They said... His voice tightens. They said she didn't show up for work this morning, that her phone's going straight to voicemail, that they've been trying to reach her since 8 a.m. Ivory leans back in her chair, crosses her arms, waits. Is that you? Collier's voice is barely controlled now. Are you the chief medical officer of Memorial Regional? That's what I told you 6 hours ago. That's what I told Officer Garrison last night. Neither of you believed me. The color drains from Collier's face. He stands, paces, runs a hand through his thinning hair. This is a misunderstanding. No, a misunderstanding is when you stop someone, verify their identity, and release them when you confirm they've done nothing wrong. What happened to me was an arrest, an interrogation, a night in a holding cell. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a series of deliberate choices. Garrison was acting on a 911 call. A 911 call describing a homeless woman. Do I look homeless to you, Lieutenant? He doesn't answer. Can't answer. The truth is written all over his face. Let me go, she says, now, and maybe this doesn't become the worst day of your career. I need to verify. You've had 12 hours to verify. You chose not to. That's on you. She stands, moves toward the door. Collier steps in front of her, blocking the way. I can't just let you walk out of here. Then you'll add false imprisonment to the list. She meets his eyes. How many violations do you want on this report, Lieutenant? Because I'm keeping count. The standoff lasts 10 seconds, 20, 30. Then Collier steps aside. Processing will have your belongings. She walks past him without another word. They give her back her phone at 11:30 a.m., 12 hours and 43 minutes after arrest. The paperwork lists released on own recognizance, a lie that will look better in the files than released because we arrested the wrong person. She signs nothing, takes her belongings, phone, watch, license, keycard, and walks out the station's front door into midday sunlight. The first call she makes is to the hospital. Memorial Regional Medical Center. How may I direct your call? This is Dr. Ashford. Please connect me to Priscilla Trent's office. The pause on the other end is brief but telling. Dr. Ashford. Oh my God. We've been trying to reach you all morning. Are you? I'm fine. Connect me to Ms. Trent. Now. 3 clicks. Hold music. Then a voice. Older. Controlled. Threaded with concern. Dr. Ashford? This is Priscilla Trent. Where are you? I'm outside the East Side Annex Police Station. I was arrested last night while attempting to enter the hospital to check on a patient. Silence on the line. Arrested for what? Trespassing. Criminal impersonation. Possession of stolen property. She lets the absurdity of the charges speak for itself. All fabricated, all based on assumptions made by an officer who saw a black woman in a parking garage and decided she didn't belong there. More silence. Then, "I'm sending a car. Don't move." The line goes dead. Oh, this is where things get interesting. Subscribe now if you want to see what happens when the hospital board finds out. The hospital's car arrives at 12:15 p.m. Black sedan. Hospital plates. A driver who introduces himself as Marcus and says nothing else for the entire ride back to Memorial Regional. Ivory sits in the back seat and watches the city pass, the same streets she drove yesterday, transformed now into something different. Evidence of a system she always knew existed but hadn't experienced from this angle until now. The hospital's main entrance is busy with visitors and staff. She walks through it anyway. Let them see her. Let them wonder where she's been, why she's not in scrubs, why she looks like she hasn't slept in 20 hours. Because she hasn't. Her office is on the 8th floor. She takes the stairs instead of the elevator. Needs the movement, the exertion, something to burn off the rage that's been building since the moment those handcuffs closed around her wrists. Priscilla Trent is waiting outside her door. The board chair is 63 years old, with silver hair and sharp eyes, and the kind of presence that fills a room before she says a word. She built her career in hospital administration. 3 decades of navigating politics and budgets and the 1,000 small crises that define healthcare in America. She's never seen anything like this. Dr. Ashford. Her voice is controlled, but barely. "Are you injured?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You were arrested for walking into your own hospital." "Yes." Priscilla takes a breath, steadies herself. "I've called an emergency board meeting, 3 p.m. today. Every member available is coming in. The hospital's attorney is reviewing what happened, and I've already had 2 calls from the police department asking us to—" She stops, chooses her words carefully. "Approach this situation with discretion." "What did you tell them?" "I told them we would respond appropriately." Her eyes meet Ivory's. "What do you want to do?" The question hangs in the air. What do you want to do? Not what should we do, or what can we do, or what will look best for the hospital. What do you want? Ivory thinks about the holding cell, the flickering light, the cold metal bench and the stale sandwich, and the hours of waiting while officers who should have known better chose not to care. She thinks about Garrison's smile, Collier's lies, the 911 call that described her as possibly homeless when she was standing in her own workplace with her own credentials in her hand. She thinks about every black woman who's been stopped for walking while tired, for driving while successful, for existing in spaces that other people have decided they don't belong. "I want documentation," she says. "Every call made to this hospital about me, every response given, every email, every memo, every piece of paper that has anything to do with what happened last night. Done. I want the 911 call, the recording. I want to know who made it and why. The attorney's already requesting it. And I want to be in that boardroom at 3 p.m., in person, looking every board member in the eye when they hear what happened to their chief medical officer." Priscilla nods. "I'll make sure you have time to prepare." "I don't need time." Ivory opens her office door. "I've been preparing for 12 hours. Now I need a shower and a clean set of scrubs. The board can wait until I'm ready." She steps inside and closes the door behind her. The shower in her private bathroom runs hot for exactly 7 minutes before the water heater gives up. She stands under the cooling spray anyway, letting it wash away the smell of the holding cell, the residue of a night spent on concrete and metal. Her wrists still ache where the handcuffs bit in. There will be bruises tomorrow, evidence that won't appear in any official report. She dries off, changes into fresh scrubs, the ones she keeps in her office for emergencies, clips her badge to her lanyard, positions it so the credentials are visible. Chief Medical Officer. Let anyone challenge her now. The hospital attorney arrives at 1:30. Samuel Vance, 47, former federal prosecutor, now managing legal affairs for one of the largest medical centers in Georgia. He carries a folder thick with documents and an expression that suggests he's already found things that make him very uncomfortable. Dr. Ashford. He sits across from her desk. I've reviewed the arrest report, the incident documentation, and I have some concerns. Such as? Such as the fact that Officer Garrison's body camera footage shows a 4-minute gap at the beginning of the encounter. Technical malfunction, according to his report. Technical malfunction. Yes, convenient, given that the missing segment covers the initial approach and the moment when he allegedly verified your credentials. He didn't verify my credentials. He confiscated them without checking anything, which is what his own footage shows, in the portion that survived. Samuel opens the folder. I also have the 911 call. Would you like to hear it? He presses play on his phone. The voice that emerges is female, controlled, almost bored. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, I need to report a suspicious person at Memorial Regional Hospital. Black female, mid-40s, acting erratically. She's trying to access restricted areas without authorization. I'm concerned she might be homeless or mentally ill. Is she threatening anyone, ma'am? Not yet, but she seems unstable. Please send someone quickly. Can I get your name and callback number? Heather Vance. I'm a nurse manager here. I just want to make sure everyone's safe. The recording ends. Ivory stares at the phone. Heather Vance. The same nurse manager who challenged her in the cafeteria, who demanded to see her badge, who looked at her with that particular mixture of suspicion and contempt that Ivory has learned to recognize over 20 years of practicing medicine while black. She called about me, Ivory says, before I even left the building. The timeline suggests so. The 911 call was placed at 11:32 p.m. You entered the parking garage at approximately 11:40, according to hospital surveillance. How did she know I was there? That's what I'm trying to determine. Samuel produces another document. I've also found something else. A text message sent from a hospital phone at 11:15 p.m., 17 minutes before the 911 call. He slides the paper across the desk. It's a printout, a text message exchange, phone numbers listed at the top. From Mercer, Gaston, hospital-issued device. 2. Personal number redacted. Time, 11:15 p.m. She's heading to her car, rear garage entrance, gray Honda. You know what to do. Ivory reads the message 3 times. She's heading to her car. You know what to do. Who received this message? The number is registered to Blake Garrison. The room goes very quiet. Dr. Mercer, Ivory says slowly, is the physician who expected to be named Chief Medical Officer. He was passed over when the board selected me. I'm aware. And he's been texting Officer Garrison, giving him my location, 17 minutes before I was arrested. It appears that way. She looks up from the document. Her face is calm. Her voice is steady. But something burns behind her eyes now. Not just anger, but recognition. The pattern becoming clear. This wasn't random. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was coordinated. The evidence suggests so. Then we don't just have a civil rights violation. We have conspiracy. Samuel Vance closes his folder. His expression is grave. That's what I'm afraid of. The boardroom fills at 2:45. 12 members, representing every stakeholder in Memorial Regional's future. Community leaders, financial experts, medical professionals, people who've spent decades building this institution and protecting its reputation. They don't know what they're about to hear. Priscilla Trent calls the meeting to order at 3 p.m. sharp. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I know this is unusual, but the situation we're facing is unusual. I'm going to turn things over to our attorney, Samuel Vance, who will explain what happened last night. And then, She pauses. Then we'll hear from the person at the center of this incident. Samuel stands, opens his folder, begins. He walks them through everything. The arrest, the charges, the 12 hours in custody, the fabricated claims, the missing body cam footage, the 911 call describing their chief medical officer as possibly homeless. He plays the recording, lets them hear Heather Vance's voice, calm and measured, characterizing a respected physician as mentally unstable. He shows them the text message. Dr. Mercer's words on the screen. She's heading to her car. You know what to do. The room is silent. It appears, Samuel says, that Dr. Ashford's arrest was not an accident. It was orchestrated by at least two individuals, one inside this hospital, one on the police force, working in coordination to target her. More silence. The kind that settles when people realize they're looking at something much bigger than they expected. Questions can wait, Samuel says. First, I'd like Dr. Ashford to tell you what she experienced in her own words. The door opens. Ivory walks in. She's wearing scrubs now, hospital badge visible on her lanyard, white coat over her arm, the coat she hasn't worn in 3 weeks, the coat that marks her as exactly what she is. She puts on the coat, and then she begins. I'm going to tell you what happened to me last night, and I want you to understand that what happened to me happens to people in this city every day. The only difference is that I'm standing here, in this room, wearing this coat. Most people who experience what I experienced don't get a boardroom. They get years, decades. Sometimes they don't get to come home at all. She moves to the front of the room. No notes, no preparation. Just a surgeon's clarity and a survivor's conviction. At 11:47 last night, I was arrested in the parking garage of this hospital. The charges were trespassing, criminal impersonation, and possession of stolen property. I was handcuffed, searched, transported to the East Side Annex, booked, fingerprinted, photographed, and held in a cell for 12 hours. At no point was I read my rights. At no point was I offered a phone call. At no point did anyone verify that I work here, despite the fact that I was carrying a valid keycard and a driver's license with my name on it. She pauses, lets the words settle. Officer Blake Garrison saw a black woman in a parking garage after dark and decided I didn't belong. That's not speculation. His own body cam footage shows him approaching with his hand on his weapon before I'd said a word. His radio log shows him describing me as suspicious before he'd asked a single question. He didn't investigate. He didn't verify. He saw my face and made a decision. She looks around the room, meets each board member's eyes in turn. But here's what makes this worse. Officer Garrison didn't act alone. 17 minutes before he approached me, someone inside this hospital sent him a text message giving my location and telling him to make it count, that someone was Dr. Gaston Mercer. The name lands like a bomb. 8 minutes after that text, someone else in this hospital called 911 to report me as a suspicious person. That caller was nurse manager Heather Vance. She described me as possibly homeless and mentally unstable. She knew who I was. She'd challenged me in the cafeteria that very morning, and she picked up a phone and lied to 911 about me anyway. Ivory lets the silence stretch. I'm not the first person this has happened to. Officer Garrison has 3 prior complaints in his file, all dismissed, all involving black citizens, all following the same pattern. But those people didn't have documentation. They didn't have board meetings convened on their behalf. They didn't have attorneys pulling records and exposing the truth. She puts her hands on the table, leans forward. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for action. I want Officer Garrison removed from any duties related to this hospital. I want a formal complaint filed with Internal Affairs demanding an investigation. I want this board to terminate the security contract with the police department and implement independent monitoring of anyone who patrols these grounds. She straightens. And I want Dr. Mercer's privileges suspended immediately pending investigation. Because whatever happened last night, it started with someone inside this building, someone who decided that I didn't deserve to be here, someone who was willing to use the police as a weapon against a colleague. The room stays silent. Then Priscilla Trent speaks. The board will vote. First motion, immediate termination of our security contract with the police department's hospital detail unit. All in favor? 12 hands rise. Second motion, formal complaint to the police department demanding Officer Garrison's suspension and internal affairs review. All in favor? 12 hands. Third motion, suspension of Dr. Gaston Mercer's privileges pending investigation of his role in last night's events. 12 hands. Motion carried, unanimously. Ivory nods. Thank you. She turns and walks toward the door, but before she reaches it, Priscilla's voice stops her. Dr. Ashford? She turns. What you went through was inexcusable, and I want you to know that this board stands behind you. Whatever comes next, investigations, lawsuits, press coverage, we'll face it together. Ivory considers this for a moment. Then, I appreciate that, but I want to be clear about something. What happened to me wasn't about me. It was about what I represent. A black woman in a position of authority, making decisions that some people don't think she should be allowed to make. She looks around the room one last time. This hospital made a choice when it appointed me. Now you have to decide whether you're willing to defend that choice, because the people who did this to me aren't going to stop just because I exposed them. They're going to push back, they're going to fight, and if you're not ready for that fight, then everything we do today means nothing. She opens the door. I'll be in my office. Let me know when the police department responds. The door closes behind her. The response comes at 6:30 p.m., not from the police department, from Dr. Gaston Mercer. He walks into her office without knocking, face red, eyes burning, hands clenched at his sides. You think you can destroy me? Ivory looks up from her computer. Her expression doesn't change. I think you destroyed yourself. I've given this hospital 15 years. 15 years of dedication, of sacrifice, of building the cardiac program from nothing. And they pass me over for you? For some outsider who doesn't know our culture, our history, our what? She stands slowly. Our way of doing things? Our tradition of promoting people who look a certain way? Say what you mean, Dr. Mercer. His face twists. You know what I mean. I know exactly what you mean. I've known what you mean since the first day I walked into this building, and you looked at me like I was something stuck to your shoe. She moves around her desk, not retreating, advancing. You sent a text message to a police officer telling him where to find me. You coordinated with Heather Vance to call 911 and report me as homeless and unstable. You tried to use the legal system as a weapon against a colleague, against someone you were too cowardly to confront directly. I did no such thing. Your phone records say otherwise. He steps closer. Close enough that she can smell the expensive cologne, the sweat underneath it. His hand rises, pointing, accusing. You think you've won? You think this is over? I have friends in this hospital, friends on this board, friends who know what you really are. And what is that? A diversity hire, an affirmative action checkmark, someone who's in that chair because of what she looks like, not what she's accomplished. The words land. She lets them. Is that what you think? That the only reason I'm standing here is because of my skin color? That's what everyone thinks. They're just too afraid to say it. She steps closer, directly into his space. Close enough that he has to look down at her, close enough that she can see the fear hiding behind his anger. Let me tell you something about my career, Dr. Mercer. Johns Hopkins residency. Chief resident at 32. Published in every major surgical journal before I was 40. 3,000 successful procedures. A mortality rate that's half the national average. I earned this position. Every day. Every surgery. Every patient whose life I saved while you were playing politics and counting your stock options. Her voice drops. You didn't lose this job because of me. You lost it because you weren't good enough. And instead of accepting that, you decided to tear me down. You failed. And now everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. For a long moment, neither of them moves. Then Mercer's composure cracks. His hand swings, fast, aimed at her face. She catches his wrist, twists. A simple motion, learned years ago and never forgotten. His body follows the momentum, stumbling forward, off balance. "Don't," she says quietly. "Ever." She releases him. She releases. He staggers back, cradling his wrist, face contorted with pain and fury. "This isn't over." "Yes," she says. "It is." Security arrives 3 minutes later. Dr. Gaston Mercer is escorted from the building. His privileges are suspended indefinitely. His career at Memorial Regional is finished. But as Ivory watches him go, she knows he's right about one thing. This isn't over. It's just beginning. The investigation has only scratched the surface. Part 2 reveals what really happened that night, and why Officer Garrison's supervisors are desperate to cover it up. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. Hague. 3 days later, Monday morning, 8 a.m. The sun streams through Ivory's office window, casting long shadows across her desk. The preliminary report from Internal Affairs sits in front of her, delivered by courier an hour ago, marked confidential in red letters. She reads it slowly, carefully, documenting every word. Officer Blake Garrison, suspended without pay pending formal hearing. Charges recommended: conduct unbecoming an officer, failure to verify credentials, potential evidence tampering, body cam deletion. Timeline for hearing: 4 to 6 months. Lieutenant Derek Collier, administrative leave pending review. No charges recommended at this time. Insufficient evidence of direct involvement in procedural violations. The language is careful, bureaucratic. Garrison is being sacrificed. Collier is being protected. The system is doing what the system always does, finding the lowest-ranking scapegoat and throwing them overboard while everyone above stays dry. She keeps reading. Heather Vance. Hospital matter. Outside law enforcement jurisdiction. Recommended for internal review. Dr. Gaston Mercer. Hospital matter. Outside law enforcement jurisdiction. Recommended for internal review. The people who started this, the nurse who called 911, the doctor who sent the text, won't face criminal charges. The system isn't built to punish them. It's built to protect itself, to minimize scandal, to make problems disappear quietly. A knock at her door. "Come in." Priscilla Trent enters, followed by Samuel Vance. Their expressions tell her everything before they say a word. "You've seen the report," Priscilla says. "I've seen it." "The DOJ has also responded." Samuel hands her a letter. "They've opened a preliminary inquiry. An investigator will contact you within 60 days. 60 days? Then interviews, then review, then maybe, action. Justice measured in fiscal years. What about the previous complaints against Garrison?" Samuel hesitates. "That's complicated." "Complicated how?" "There were 3 complaints filed over the past 5 years, all dismissed, all following similar patterns." He pauses. "One of the complainants died in custody 8 months ago. Heart attack, according to official records." The room goes very quiet. "And the other 2? "One moved out of state. Won't return calls. The other has agreed to speak with our investigators, but only if we can guarantee protection." "Protection from what?" "From the police department. She says she's been followed, harassed, warned to keep quiet." Samuel's expression is grave. "She says Garrison isn't working alone, that there's a pattern of targeting black residents and making complaints disappear, and that the people running that pattern go higher than anyone's willing to look." Ivory stares at the letter in her hand. DOJ. Preliminary inquiry. 60 days. "So we wait," she says. "For now." "And while we wait, while the investigation creeps forward, what happens to the next person Garrison stops? The next person Collier covers for? The next person who ends up in a cell because they walked into the wrong parking garage at the wrong time, neither of them answers. Because there is no answer. Not one that fits inside the rules, not one that changes anything fast enough to matter. She puts the letter down. I want to talk to the complainant, the one who's willing to speak. That might not be. I'm not asking permission. Set up the meeting. I want to know what she knows. Samuel and Priscilla exchange glances. All right, Priscilla says. But be careful. The deeper you dig, the more enemies you make. I already made enemies, Ivory replies. The night I walked into that parking garage wearing the wrong skin. Digging just tells me who they are. The meeting happens 2 days later. A coffee shop on the west side. Neutral ground. A woman named Delia Foster, 38, mother of 2, former pharmaceutical sales rep who lost her job after her arrest made the news. She's thin now, tired. Shadows under her eyes that suggest sleep hasn't come easily in a long time. Thank you for meeting me, Ivory says. I almost didn't. Delia wraps her hands around her coffee cup, not drinking. Every time I talk about this, something happens. A flat tire, a broken window. My kid's daycare gets a call from someone asking questions. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be careful. She looks around the coffee shop, checking exits, scanning faces. You want to know about Garrison? And anyone he works with? Works with. That's a nice way of putting it. Delia's laugh is hollow. He's part of a network. Officers who target certain neighborhoods, certain people. They make arrests that don't stick, but the records stay. The mugshots stay. Try getting a job with 3 arrests on your record, even if none of them led to charges. Who else is involved? I don't know names, just faces and patterns. She finally takes a sip of her coffee. They rotate. Different officers on different stops, but the same techniques, the same excuses, convenient camera malfunctions, witnesses who change their stories, supervisors who look the other way. Lieutenant Collier? Never met him personally, but his name comes up. The guy who makes problems disappear. Ivory thinks about the IA report. Collier's administrative leave. Insufficient evidence. How high does it go? I don't know, but someone's protecting them. Someone with juice. Because every complaint gets dismissed, every investigation gets buried, every victim gets tired of fighting and gives up. Delia sets down her cup. I was ready to give up too. Then I saw the news, saw what happened to you, and I thought, maybe if someone with power finally faces what the rest of us face, maybe things change. Maybe. But probably not. Delia stands. They're good at this, Dr. Ashford. They've been doing it for years, and you're just one person. I know. Then why fight? Ivory considers the question. The same question she's been asking herself since the moment those handcuffs closed around her wrists. Because if I don't, she says, then who will? Delia nods slowly. Something like respect crosses her face. Be careful, she says again, and watch your back. They don't like it when people fight back. She walks out of the coffee shop without looking back. That night, Ivory sits in her apartment, laptop open, documents spread across her kitchen table. Everything she's gathered, every report, every record, every piece of evidence. The 911 call, the body cam footage, the text message from Mercer, Delia's testimony, the prior complaints, the pattern she's only beginning to understand. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number. She answers. Dr. Ashford? The voice is male, nervous, unfamiliar. My name is... Look, I can't tell you my name, but I have information. About what? About Garrison. About the night you were arrested. About... The voice drops. About what's really going on. Who are you? I was his partner, before Delgado, before all of this. A long pause. I saw things. Things I should have reported but didn't. Things I've been carrying for 3 years. Why are you calling me now? Because you're the first person who didn't disappear. The first person who fought back and actually survived. And because... His voice cracks. Because I can't live with it anymore. What we did. What I helped cover up. Ivory grips the phone tighter. What did you cover up? Meet me, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. The old warehouse on 8th Street. I'll bring everything I have. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. But I'm your only chance of finding out who's really running this thing, and trust me, Ashford. It goes a lot higher than Garrison. The line goes dead. Ivory stares at the phone, the documents on her table, the laptop glowing in the darkness. Tomorrow night. 8 p.m. She doesn't know if it's a breakthrough or a trap, but she knows one thing for certain. She's going to find out. The warehouse on 8th Street had been abandoned for 6 years. Ivory knew this because she'd spent the afternoon researching it. Former textile factory, closed in 2018 when the company moved operations overseas. Now, it sat empty on the edge of the industrial district, surrounded by chain-link fence and warning signs that no one bothered to enforce. The perfect place for a trap, or the perfect place for a confession. She parked 2 blocks away at 7:45 p.m., cut the engine, sat in the darkness and watched the building through her windshield. No lights inside, no vehicles in the lot, no sign that anyone was waiting for her. Her phone sat on the passenger seat. She'd already texted the address to 3 people, Samuel Vance, Priscilla Trent, and her sister Elena in D.C. If something happened tonight, someone would know where to look. 7:52. She got out of the car. The night air was cold, carrying the smell of rust and stagnant water from the drainage canal that ran behind the property. Her footsteps echoed on cracked asphalt as she approached the fence. A gap in the chain link, wide enough for a person, recently cut, based on the bright metal edges. She slipped through. The warehouse loomed ahead, all broken windows and peeling paint. A loading dock on the east side, doors hanging open. She headed toward it, every sense alert, cataloging details the way she cataloged symptoms, automatically, constantly, looking for patterns that didn't fit. Movement in the shadows. She stopped. Dr. Ashford? The voice came from inside the loading dock. Male. The same nervous tone from the phone call. You came alone? Yes. Good. Come inside. Slowly. She climbed the concrete steps, ducked through the hanging doors. The interior was vast and empty, moonlight filtering through broken skylights to cast pale rectangles on the dusty floor. A man stood near the far wall. Average height. Average build. Nothing memorable about him except the fear in his eyes. I'm Connor, he said. Connor Briggs. I was Garrison's partner for 2 years, before I transferred out. Why did you transfer? Because I couldn't stomach what we were doing anymore. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the lines on his face, the gray in his hair. And because I knew if I stayed, eventually I'd end up like the rest of them, or worse. What were you doing? He laughed. Hollow, bitter. You want the short version or the long version? I want the truth. The truth. He rubbed his face with both hands. The truth is that Garrison isn't some rogue cop who made a bad call. He's part of a system, a network of officers who target specific people, black residents, immigrants, anyone who fits a profile. They make arrests that don't stick, but the records stay. They confiscate property that never gets returned. They run people through the system over and over until they're too broken to fight back. Who else is involved? At least a dozen officers that I know of, probably more. They rotate assignments, share information, cover for each other when complaints get filed. And the supervisors? Collier knows. He's been managing it for years, making problems disappear, reassigning officers before investigations get too close. What about Deputy Chief Barton? Connor went still. Barton. The name came out like a curse. Barton doesn't just know. Barton runs it. Che. The silence stretched between them. Ivory processed the information. Deputy Chief Floyd Barton, 28 years on the force. The man who'd appeared at the station the morning after her arrest, concerned about optics. The man who'd told Collier to handle it before things became a headline. You're saying the Deputy Chief of Police is running a criminal enterprise inside his own department? I'm saying he's been doing it for at least a decade, maybe longer. Connor reached into his jacket, pulled out a flash drive. I have documentation, emails, internal memos, transfer requests that got buried, complaint files that disappeared. It's not everything, but it's enough to prove a pattern. Why didn't you come forward before? Because people who come forward end up dead. His voice cracked. You heard about Delia Foster's complaint? There were 2 others that year. One moved to Florida, changed her name, disappeared. The other, Marcus Webb, died in a car accident 3 months after he filed. Single vehicle. Lost control on a dry road in broad daylight. The official story? Distracted driving. No witnesses. Case closed. Ivory thought about the complainant who died in custody 8 months ago. Heart attack, according to records. Another convenient explanation. What made you decide to call me? Because you survived. Connor stepped closer, desperation in his eyes. Everyone else, they get arrested, they get scared, they take a settlement and sign an NDA and try to forget it ever happened. But you fought back. You exposed Garrison. You got Mercer suspended. You showed it's possible to win. I haven't won anything yet. You're still standing. That's more than most people can say. He held out the flash drive. Take it. Give it to the DOJ. Give it to a journalist. Give it to anyone who'll listen. Just promise me you'll use it. Promise me this wasn't all for nothing. She took the drive. Small, black, heavier than it looked. Why now? Why tonight? Because I'm leaving. His voice dropped. Tomorrow morning. New city, new name, new life. I've been planning it for months. But before I go, I needed to give this to someone who'd actually do something with it. Running won't keep you safe. If they find out you talked, they won't find out. He managed a grim smile. I've been playing their game for years. I know how to disappear. A sound from outside. Tires on gravel. They both froze. Did you tell anyone you were coming here? Connor's voice was a whisper now. No. Then we have a problem. If you think this is intense, wait until you see what happens next. Subscribe and keep watching. The headlights swept across the warehouse windows. 2 vehicles, moving slowly through the gap in the fence. No sirens, no lights. Just the low rumble of engines and the crunch of tires on broken asphalt. Back exit, Connor said. Through the offices. There's a fire door that leads to the canal. They moved, fast but quiet, weaving between support pillars and rusted machinery. The offices were at the north end, a row of glass-walled rooms stripped of everything but debris. Behind them, car doors slammed. Voices, mail, multiple. Sure this is the place? Tracker shows her car 2 blocks east. She's here. Tracker. Someone had put a tracker on her car. Ivory filed the information away, kept moving. The fire door was ahead, red paint peeling, crash bar corroded but intact. Connor hit it first. The door groaned open. They emerged into the night air, a narrow strip of concrete between the warehouse and the canal. The water below was black and still, reflecting nothing. This way. Connor headed left, toward a bridge she could barely see in the darkness. There's a path along the canal. Comes out on Industrial Boulevard. They ran. 50 yards, 100, the warehouse growing smaller behind them. Then flashlights appeared at the fire door. There, on the canal. Running footsteps now, multiple sets, gaining. The bridge was 100 yards ahead. Connor was flagging, older than her, less fit, breathing hard. Go, he gasped. I'll slow them down. Don't be stupid. I'm not being stupid. I'm being practical. He grabbed her arm. That flash drive is more important than me. Get it out. Get it to someone who can use it. Promise me. Connor, promise me. I promise. He turned back toward their pursuers. She kept running. Behind her, she heard him shout, "Over here! I'm the one you want!" Then a scuffle, a grunt of pain, the sound of someone hitting concrete. She didn't look back. The bridge loomed ahead, old steel, covered in graffiti, spanning the canal in a graceless arc. She crossed it at a sprint, her footsteps ringing on the metal grating. On the other side, a chain-link fence, another gap, this one older, the edges dulled by time. Through, Industrial Boulevard stretched ahead, cars passing, streetlights, civilization. She slowed to a walk, caught her breath, checked the flash drive still clutched in her hand. Then she pulled out her phone and called 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report an assault. Old warehouse on 8th Street. A man is being attacked. Can you describe the attackers, ma'am? No. I didn't see them clearly. A lie. She'd seen enough. The way they moved. The coordination. The fact that they'd known exactly where to find her. But naming them now, accusing police officers without evidence, would only give them time to coordinate their stories. Better to report the assault, get Connor help, and work out the rest later. Officers are being dispatched. Can I get your name and location? She gave them, waited for the response. Ma'am, please stay on the line until... She hung up. Then she walked to her car, got in, and drove home. The flash drive contained 347 files. Ivory spent the next 6 hours going through them. Emails, memos, spreadsheets, photographs. A decade of documentation, meticulously organized, damning beyond anything she'd imagined. Internal emails showing officers coordinating stops in specific neighborhoods. Memos from Collier reassigning investigators who got too close to the truth. Financial records showing unexplained deposits in accounts linked to Barton's relatives. And complaint files, dozens of them, marked closed or unfounded without any apparent investigation. One name appeared over and over, Marcus Webb. The man Connor said died in a car accident 3 months after filing a complaint. She found his file, read it carefully. Marcus Webb, 42, security guard. Arrested 4 times in 2 years. Loitering, trespassing, obstruction, resisting arrest. All charges dropped. All arrests made by officers in Garrison's network. His complaint was detailed. Names. Dates. Badge numbers. A systematic pattern of harassment that started after he refused to let officers search his car without a warrant during a routine traffic stop. The complaint was assigned to Internal Affairs. Investigator, Sergeant Yolanda Price. Findings. Inconclusive. Insufficient evidence to substantiate allegations. 3 months later, Marcus Webb was dead, and Sergeant Yolanda Price was now assigned to investigate Ivory's case. Morning came gray and cold. Ivory hadn't slept. Couldn't sleep. The flash drive sat on her kitchen table like a bomb waiting to detonate. She made coffee, drank it black, watched the sun rise through her window, and thought about what came next. The evidence on the drive was explosive. But evidence meant nothing without someone willing to act on it. Internal Affairs was compromised. The police department was compromised. Even the DA's office might be compromised, depending on how deep the network ran. That left federal authorities. The DOJ had already opened a preliminary inquiry. An investigator would contact her within 60 days. But 60 days was too long. Too much time for evidence to disappear, witnesses to be silenced, stories to be coordinated. She needed to accelerate the timeline. Her phone buzzed. Samuel Vance. Dr. Ashford, I've been trying to reach you for hours. I was busy. Connor Briggs is in the hospital. Someone beat him half to death last night near the old warehouse district. She closed her eyes. How bad? Broken ribs, fractured skull, internal bleeding. He's in surgery now. Is he going to make it? They don't know yet. A pause. Dr. Ashford, what happened last night? The police found your car in the area. They're asking questions. I was meeting a source, someone with information about Garrison's network. We were interrupted. By whom? I don't know, but they knew where I'd be. They tracked my car. Silence on the line. You need to come in, Samuel said finally. To the hospital. Now. Priscilla's called another emergency meeting, and he hesitated. There's something else you need to see. What? Just come in. Bring whatever your source gave you. Eat. The hospital boardroom was crowded. Priscilla Trent sat at the head of the table, looking like she hadn't slept either. Samuel Vance stood beside her, folder in hand. Two people Ivory didn't recognize occupied chairs near the window. A black woman in her 50s, severe suit, FBI badge visible on her belt, and a younger white man with the bland competence of federal bureaucracy. Dr. Ashford. Priscilla gestured to an empty chair. Please sit. Ivory sat. This is Special Agent Ramona Clark, FBI Civil Rights Division, Priscilla continued, and Agent Marcus Finley, DOJ Liaison. They've been in contact with our legal team since yesterday afternoon. Since yesterday afternoon, before the warehouse, before Connor. What changed? Ivory asked. Agent Clark leaned forward. We received an anonymous tip 3 days ago. Flash drive delivered to our Atlanta field office. No return address, no fingerprints, just data, and a lot of it. Another flash drive. Someone else had documentation. The tip corroborated concerns we've had about the Atlanta PD for several years, Clark continued, but we lacked grounds for formal investigation. Your arrest and the hospital's subsequent complaint gave us what we needed. You're investigating the department? We're investigating specific individuals within the department. The scope may expand depending on what we find. Clark's eyes were sharp, assessing. I understand you met with a confidential source last night, and that source is now in critical condition. Connor Briggs. He was Garrison's former partner. He gave me documentation. What kind of documentation? Ivory reached into her bag, produced the flash drive. Everything. Emails, memos, financial records, names of officers involved, complaint files that were buried, 10 years of corruption, all on one drive. Clark took the drive carefully, like it might explode. You understand this makes you a target. I've been a target since the moment I walked into that parking garage. True. But now you're a target who can damage people with real power. People who've shown they're willing to use violence to protect themselves. Clark set the drive on the table. We can offer protection, federal marshals, safe house, the full package. I'm not hiding. Dr. Ashford. I have patients who need me, surgeries scheduled, a hospital to run. I'm not abandoning my responsibilities because some corrupt cops want me scared. Clark studied her for a long moment. You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. Ivory met her gaze. But I'm not running. What I am doing is cooperating fully with your investigation. Whatever you need, testimony, documentation, access to hospital records, you'll have it. Clark nodded slowly. Then let's talk about what comes next. The investigation moved faster than Ivory expected. Federal subpoenas hit the police department within 48 hours. Evidence was seized. Officers were questioned. The network that had operated in shadows for a decade suddenly found itself exposed to daylight. Deputy Chief Floyd Barton gave a press conference 2 days after the subpoenas, standing at a podium with the mayor beside him, insisting the allegations were politically motivated and without merit. He looked calm, confident, like a man who'd weathered storms before and expected to weather this one too. Ivory watched the conference from her office, coffee growing cold in her hand. Complete confidence in the integrity of our officers. Integrity. The word tasted like ash. Cooperating fully with federal authorities. cooperation meant delay, meant lost documents and coordinated stories and witnesses who suddenly couldn't remember details. Isolated incidents do not reflect departmental culture. Isolated, the same word they always used, as if patterns were accidents, as if decades of abuse were a series of unfortunate coincidences. Her phone buzzed. Text from Agent Clark. Clark, Briggs is awake, asking to see you. The hospital room was small and white and filled with machines. Connor Briggs lay in the bed, face swollen purple, tubes running from his arms to bags of fluid hanging overhead. His eyes were open, barely, and tracked her as she entered. "You made it," he whispered. "So did you." "Barely." He tried to smile, winced instead. "They found me about 10 minutes after you left. Worked me over pretty good before a patrol car finally showed up." "Did you see their faces?" "One of them, young guy, blonde, badge number—" He closed his eyes, concentrating. 4732, I think. Everything's fuzzy. 4732. She filed it away. "The flash drive?" "Safe. I gave it to the FBI." Relief flickered across his battered face. "Good. That's good." He struggled to sit up, failed, settled back against the pillows. "There's something else. Something I didn't put on the drive because I couldn't prove it." "What?" "The woman who died in custody 8 months ago, Sheila Patterson. She wasn't just a complainant. She was a witness." "Witness to what?" "To a murder." Connor's voice dropped. 3 years ago. An arrest that went wrong. Suspect resisted, according to the report. Officers used necessary force. Suspect died at the scene." "Who was the suspect?" "A kid, 17 years old. Name was Darnell Williams. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong color." Connor's eyes glistened. "I was there. I saw what happened. It wasn't necessary force. It was an execution." The room seemed to shrink around them. Sheila Patterson lived across the street. She saw the whole thing from her window. She tried to report it, but the officers got to her first, threatened her, told her what would happen if she talked. But she talked anyway. 8 months ago, filed a complaint with Internal Affairs, named names, gave a detailed statement. Connor's hand trembled on the bed rail. 2 weeks later, she was arrested for shoplifting, held overnight, died in her cell. Heart attack, they said. But Sheila was 43 years old and healthy as a horse. Ivory thought about the complaint files on the flash drive, about Marcus Webb, killed in a convenient car accident, about the network of officers who'd been operating with impunity for a decade, about how far they were willing to go to protect themselves. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because someone needs to know. And because—" He gripped her hand with surprising strength. "Because if something happens to me, I need someone to remember. I need someone to make sure it matters." "Nothing's going to happen to you. You don't know that." His grip tightened. "Promise me. Promise me you won't let them bury this. Promise me Darnell Williams gets justice, even if I'm not around to see it." She looked at his battered face, at the fear in his eyes, at the courage it must have taken to reach out to her, knowing what it might cost. "I promise." This investigation goes deeper than anyone imagined. Subscribe now. Part 2 is just getting started. The name Darnell Williams opened doors that had been sealed for 3 years. Ivory worked with Agent Clark to trace the threads. Incident reports, witness statements, autopsy findings, a case that had been closed and filed away, labeled justified use of force, buried so deep that no one had thought to look at it again. Until now. The arrest had happened on a Saturday night in October. Darnell Williams, 17, had been walking home from his part-time job at a grocery store. He was stopped by 2 officers who claimed he matched the description of a robbery suspect. He ran. They chased. and somewhere in the darkness between one street corner and another, he died. The official story: Darnell pulled a knife. The officers defended themselves. Tragic but unavoidable. The reality, according to Connor Briggs: Darnell was unarmed. The knife was planted afterward. And the officers who killed him, Blake Garrison and his then partner, a man named Wesley Harmon, had coordinated their stories before the first investigator arrived on scene. Wesley Harmon. The name didn't appear on the flash drive, but it appeared in the personnel files Agent Clark had subpoenaed. Harmon had transferred out of the Atlanta PD 6 months after Darnell's death, took a job with a small department in rural Alabama, disappeared into the kind of obscurity that suggested someone had helped him fade away. "We need to find him," Ivory said. Clark nodded. "Already working on it. If Harmon is willing to talk, his testimony could blow this whole thing open." "And if he's not willing?" "Then we keep building the case with what we have. Briggs, the flash drives, the pattern of complaints. It's not as clean as a confession, but it might be enough." Might be enough. The words hung in the air like a promise neither of them fully believed. 2 weeks passed. The investigation ground forward, slow and methodical. Officers were interviewed. Documents were analyzed. A grand jury was convened, though its deliberations remained sealed. Garrison stayed suspended. Collier stayed on administrative leave. Barton stayed in his position, giving speeches about rebuilding trust and transparency, words that meant nothing and changed even less. The hospital moved on. Surgeries continued. Patients healed. The scandal faded from headlines, replaced by newer outrages, fresher injustices. But Ivory didn't forget. Every morning, she checked for updates from Clark. Every evening, she reviewed the documentation, looking for connections she might have missed. Every night, she lay awake thinking about Darnell Williams, 17 years old, walking home from work, killed for the crime of running from men who frightened him. She thought about his mother, Gloria Williams, who had sued the department and lost, who had spoken at city council meetings and been ignored, who had buried her son and received nothing but a form letter expressing official condolences. She thought about calling her, reaching out, telling her that someone was finally paying attention. But she didn't. Not yet. Not until there was something real to offer. Not until justice was more than a possibility. Chucker. Wesley Harmon was found in a trailer park outside Mobile, Alabama. Agent Finley made the trip personally. 3 hours of driving, followed by 2 hours of conversation, followed by a phone call that changed everything. "He's willing to talk," Finley reported. "More than willing. He's been carrying this for 3 years. Says he can't sleep, can't eat, can't look at himself in the mirror without seeing that kid's face." "What's he asking for in return?" "Immunity, protection, a new identity after he testifies." "Can you give him that?" "DOJ is working on it. Should have an answer within 48 hours. Ivory hung up the phone and allowed herself, for the first time, to feel something like hope. The hope lasted 36 hours. Then Wesley Harmon was dead. Single vehicle accident, lost control on a rural highway. No witnesses. Body burned beyond recognition in the subsequent fire. The official story: mechanical failure. Tragic coincidence. The reality: the third witness to die before they could testify. Ivory got the news from Clark, who delivered it with the flat affect of someone who'd seen too many convenient deaths to be surprised anymore. "We're treating it as suspicious. FBI is taking over the investigation, but..." She paused. "It'll take time, and time is something we're running out of." "What about the grand jury?" "Still deliberating, but without Harmon, we're back to circumstantial evidence and pattern analysis. That might be enough for indictments. It probably won't be enough for convictions." Probably won't be enough. Ivory thought about Gloria Williams, about Darnell, about all the people who'd been failed by a system that protected itself above all else. There has to be something else. There might be. Clark's voice shifted. Harmon called me the night before he died, said he had something important to show me, something he'd kept hidden for 3 years. What? He didn't say, just said it was proof, the kind of proof that couldn't be explained away or covered up. Clark exhaled. We're searching his trailer now. If he hid something there, we'll find it. They found it. Hidden in a lockbox beneath a loose floorboard, buried under 3 years of dust and debris, a cell phone, old model, cracked screen, battery dead. But the memory card inside was intact, and what it contained was exactly what Clark had been hoping for. Video. 47 seconds of footage, shot from a window across the street from where Darnell Williams died. Shaky, dark, but clear enough to see what happened. 2 officers, 1 teenager. The teenager on the ground, hands up, not resisting. 1 officer standing over him, the other reaching into his pocket. Then the flash of gunfire. 3 shots. The teenager's body jerking with each impact. And afterward, the 2 officers talking, gesturing, one of them pulling something small from his own belt and placing it in the teenager's hand. The knife. Planted. After the killing. This is it, Clark said when she showed Ivory the footage. This is what we needed. Undeniable proof of murder and cover-up. Will it be enough for convictions? With this, with the pattern evidence, with Briggs's testimony? Clark nodded slowly. Yes, I think it will. The indictments came down on a Thursday. Blake Garrison, murder in the 2nd degree, civil rights violations, evidence tampering, conspiracy. Derek Collier, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, failure to report criminal activity. Floyd Barton, conspiracy, civil rights violations, corruption of public office, racketeering. 7 additional officers were named as co-conspirators. 3 more faced administrative charges pending further investigation. The press conference was held at the federal courthouse, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. Agent Clark stood at the podium, flanked by the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia and a representative from the DOJ Civil Rights Division. Today's indictments represent the culmination of a multi-year investigation into systemic corruption within the Atlanta Police Department, Clark said. The defendants are accused of operating a criminal enterprise that targeted vulnerable citizens, violated their constitutional rights, and caused immeasurable harm to this community. She paused. Let the words sink in. I want to be clear. The actions of these individuals do not represent the majority of law enforcement officers who serve with honor and integrity. But they do represent a cancer that was allowed to grow unchecked for far too long. Today, we begin the process of cutting that cancer out. Questions erupted. Clark answered some, deflected others, maintained the careful neutrality of someone who knew the real work was just beginning. Ivory watched from the back of the room, standing beside Priscilla Trent and Samuel Vance. She didn't speak to reporters, didn't seek attention, just observed as the system that had tried to destroy her finally began to devour its own. It wasn't justice. Not yet. Justice would come later if it came at all, in courtrooms and deliberation rooms, in verdicts that might take years to reach. But it was a start. Gloria Williams called that evening. Ivory didn't recognize the number, but she answered anyway. Dr. Ashford? The voice was older, tired, threaded with an emotion Ivory couldn't quite identify. This is Gloria Williams, Darnell's mother. Mrs. Williams, I've been wanting to reach out to you. I saw the news. A long pause. They're saying those officers murdered my son, that they planted evidence, that they covered it up for 3 years. Yes. And you... Her voice cracked. You're the one who made them look. The one who wouldn't let them bury it. I had help. A lot of help. But you started it. When they arrested you. When you fought back instead of disappearing. Gloria was crying now, the sound muffled like she was pressing a hand over her mouth. For 3 years I've been screaming into the void, telling anyone who would listen that my boy didn't deserve to die. And for 3 years, nobody cared. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry it took this long. Don't be sorry. Gloria's voice steadied. Be proud. You did something nobody else could do. You made them pay attention. Ivory closed her eyes. Thought about the holding cell, the interrogation room, the moment when Garrison's handcuffs closed around her wrists. Your son deserved better, Mrs. Williams. Yes, he did. A long breath. But maybe now the world will know who he really was. A good kid, a hard worker, someone who was going to make something of himself. I'll make sure they remember. Thank you. Gloria's voice broke again. Thank you for not giving up. The line went silent. Ivory sat in her apartment, phone in her hand, and let the tears come. Check. The indictments are just the beginning. Subscribe now to see how this ends. Show. The trials began 4 months later. Garrison's case went first. The murder charge demanded priority, and prosecutors wanted to establish the pattern before tackling the conspiracy cases. Ivory testified on the 3rd day. The courtroom was packed. Press in the gallery. Lawyers at their tables. Garrison himself seated behind the defense, wearing a suit instead of a uniform, his face carefully blank. She told them everything. The parking garage, the arrest, the night in the holding cell, the interrogation where Garrison put his hand on her shoulder and promised she wasn't getting out until he said so. She told them about Connor Briggs, about the flash drive, about Wesley Harmon's convenient death and the video that survived him. She told them about Darnell Williams, 17 years old, walking home from work, murdered for nothing. The defense attorney tried to shake her, challenged her memory, questioned her motives, suggested she was exaggerating, misremembering, driven by racial animus against the officers who'd only been doing their jobs. She didn't waver. Officer Garrison arrested me because of how I looked, she said. Not because of anything I did, not because of any crime I committed. He saw a black woman in a parking garage and decided I was a threat. That's not policing, that's profiling. And if it happened to me, a chief medical officer with resources and connections, and a hospital board willing to fight for me, imagine what happens to people who don't have any of that. The jury deliberated for 6 days. Guilty, on all counts. Garrison showed no emotion when the verdict was read, just stared straight ahead, jaw tight, as the judge remanded him to custody pending sentencing. Collier's trial came next, then Barton's, then the conspiracy case against the remaining officers. The convictions came slowly, inconsistently. Some officers took plea deals, others went to trial and won acquittals on technicalities. The system wasn't perfect, justice wasn't complete, but it was real. Choke. 6 months after the trials ended, Ivory stood in the lobby of Memorial Regional Medical Center, watching workers install a new plaque near the entrance. The plaque bore 3 names: Darnell Williams, Marcus Webb, Sheila Patterson. Below the names, a simple inscription: in memory of those who sought justice and paid the ultimate price, may their courage inspire us to build a better world. The installation was Gloria Williams's idea. She'd approached the hospital board 3 months ago, asking if they would honor the victims whose deaths had finally led to accountability. Priscilla Trent had said yes without hesitation. It's beautiful, Gloria said now, standing beside Ivory as the final screw was tightened. He would have liked it. He would have deserved more. Yes, but this is a start. Gloria touched the plaque gently. Every person who walks through these doors will see his name, will know he mattered, will remember what happened to him, and what we did to change it. Yes. Gloria turned to face her. What you did, don't minimize that. You could have taken the settlement, signed the NDA, made it all go away. That was never an option. It's always an option. Gloria's eyes were clear and knowing. You just chose differently. And because you did, other people found the courage to choose differently too. The reforms came gradually. New oversight board with civilian membership, mandatory body cameras with tamper-proof uploads, independent review of all use-of-force incidents, annual audits of complaint files and disciplinary records. Not perfect, not foolproof, but better than before. The federal consent decree lasted 3 years. Monitors came and went, reports were filed. Progress was measured in increments so small they were almost invisible, but the numbers told a story. Complaints down 18%, use-of-force incidents down 23%, community trust surveys showing improvement for the first time in a decade. Small changes, incremental, the kind that don't make headlines but accumulate over years into something different. Ivory stayed at Memorial Regional. She thought about leaving, after everything that had happened, after the trials and the testimony and the months of living under threat. Part of her wanted to start over somewhere else, somewhere quiet, somewhere she could just be a doctor without the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. But she didn't leave, because the work wasn't finished, because the patients still needed her, because running would mean letting them win, not the officers in prison, but the system that had created them, the assumptions, the biases, the 1,000 small decisions that added up to injustice. She stayed, she operated, she saved lives. And every morning when she walked through the hospital entrance, she passed the plaque with 3 names and remembered why she fought. Shout. 1 year after the convictions, a letter arrived at her office. No return address, no signature, just a single page, handwritten in careful block letters. Dr. Ashford, you don't know me, but I know you. I've been watching what you did, how you stood up when everyone told you to sit down, how you kept fighting when everyone said it was impossible. I'm a cop, 22 years on the force, and I've seen things I should have reported but didn't, things that keep me up at night. For a long time I told myself it wasn't my problem, that one person couldn't change anything, that speaking up would just destroy my career without making a difference. But you proved me wrong. One person can make a difference. One voice can start an avalanche. I'm not ready to come forward yet. Not publicly. But I'm starting to document, starting to build a case, starting to find others who feel the same way I do. Maybe nothing will come of it. Maybe the system will crush us like it's crushed so many others. But maybe not. Maybe the next time someone like you needs help, we'll be ready. Thank you for showing us what courage looks like. A friend. Ivory read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully, placed it in her desk drawer, and went back to work. The hospital was quiet at midnight. Ivory made her rounds the way she always did, checking on post-surgical patients, reviewing charts, making sure nothing had been missed during the shift change. Mrs. Patterson's old room was occupied by someone new now, a young woman recovering from an appendectomy, 23 years old, whole life ahead of her. Ivory checked her vitals, adjusted her IV, made a note in the chart about pain management. Dr. Ashford? She looked up. The young woman's eyes were open, foggy with medication but aware. I know you. Her voice was barely a whisper. I saw you on the news. You're the one who... I'm the one who's checking on your recovery. Ivory smiled. How's the pain? Better. The nurse gave me something. Good. Get some rest. I'll check on you again in the morning. She turned to leave. Dr. Ashford? She paused at the door. Thank you. For what you did. My brother... The young woman swallowed. My brother was stopped by police last year. They said he matched a description. Held him for 6 hours before they let him go. He didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry that happened to him. Me too, but... Her eyes glistened. But after what you did, maybe things will be different. Maybe next time, they'll think twice. Maybe. It was the best anyone could hope for, the best anyone could promise. Maybe things would be different. Maybe next time. Get some rest, Ivory said again. "I'll see you in the morning." She walked out of the room, down the hallway, past the nurse's station where Willow Keene was reviewing charts. "Long night, Dr. Ashford?" "They're all long nights." "True," Willow smiled, "but you're still here." "Where else would I be?" She took the elevator to the lobby, walked past the plaque with 3 names, pushed through the doors into the cold night air. Her car was parked in the staff garage. Level 3, the same spot she'd used since her first day at this hospital. The same garage where everything had started. She walked through it now without fear, without hesitation. Just a woman going home after a long shift, thinking about the patients she'd saved and the work still waiting to be done. The city spread out beyond the garage entrance, lights blinking, traffic humming, a million lives unfolding in the darkness. She got in her car, started the engine, pulled out of the garage, and into the night. Behind her, Memorial Regional glowed against the sky, a beacon in the darkness, a place where people came to be healed. She thought about everything that had brought her here, the arrest, the trial, the fights she'd won, and the fights still ahead. She thought about Darnell Williams, who never got to grow up, about Marcus Webb and Sheila Patterson, who died seeking justice they never found, about Connor Briggs, still recovering, still carrying scars that would never fully heal. She thought about the letter in her desk drawer, the anonymous officer who'd found courage because she'd found it first. And she thought about tomorrow, another day, another chance, another opportunity to make things better, one patient at a time, one decision at a time, one act of courage at a time. The road stretched ahead, dark and uncertain. But she wasn't afraid. She'd walked through worse, survived worse, emerged stronger than before. And whatever came next, whatever new battles waited, whatever new enemies emerged, whatever new tests of her strength and resolve appeared on the horizon, she would face them the same way she'd faced everything else, head high, eyes open, refusing to look away, because that's what justice required. Not perfection, not complete victory, just persistence, dedication, the willingness to keep fighting even when the outcome was uncertain, even when the system pushed back, even when it would be easier to give up. She drove through the sleeping city, past darkened windows and empty streets, toward a home that felt a little more like sanctuary than it had a year ago. The night wrapped around her like a blanket, and somewhere in the distance, the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon. Chapter. The end. But not quite. Because 3 weeks later, Ivory received a phone call. Unknown number, middle of the night. She answered without thinking, expecting an emergency from the hospital. "Dr. Ashford?" The voice was female, young, frightened. "Yes?" "My name is Brianna Torres. I'm a detective with the Chicago Police Department, and I need your help." "How did you get this number?" "Connor Briggs gave it to me, before everything happened." A shaky breath. "Dr. Ashford, what you exposed in Atlanta, it's not just happening there, it's everywhere, and I have evidence. But I don't know who to trust. I don't know where to turn. I don't know—" "Slow down." Ivory sat up in bed, fully awake now. "Tell me what you know." "I can't, not over the phone. They might be listening." "Then we'll meet, somewhere safe. Tell me when and where." A long pause. Then, "There's a coffee shop in Midtown, the Daily Grind, tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. Can you be there?" "I'll be there." "Thank you." Brianna's voice cracked. "Thank you for being the kind of person who actually shows up." The line went dead. Ivory stared at her phone. At the time, 3:27 a.m. At the darkness outside her window. Then she got out of bed and started making calls. Because the work was never finished. Because justice was never complete. Because somewhere out there, another person needed help. Another system needed exposure. Another fight waited to be fought. And she would be there. Always. No matter what it cost.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video today. If you found the content helpful, please remember to like and subscribe so you won't miss our upcoming episodes. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. We are always here to listen.